All right, well, welcome everybody to our webinar, which is going to be a peer-to-peer learning conversation on engaging youth in philanthropy. And this is building on the December webinar that we had that Jacqueline led, actually, that had some folks come in and talk about what they have done with their foundations to get young people involved on their boards and in their local philanthropy efforts. And so that's what we'll be talking about today. And so to get started, what I will do is just share, and we've got them pretty distinctly spelled out here on this slide, but the highlights from the last webinar that we had in December. And so these were the pointers that our presenters at that point brought up. And the first thing that they talked about was partnering with local school districts and nonprofits. And so, and I'm assuming they mean those nonprofits that are serving young people already in the community, because you've got a ready avenue into meeting those young people and connecting with those young people. And so the Community Giving Foundation's Youth and Philanthropy program actually partners with 12 school districts across a region. And they ask school boards to approve their program as a club in the school. And then that way the school can provide a faculty member who is responsible for things like getting permission from parents, all those things that we have to think about when we're working with minors in our work. We have to shift our thinking a little bit in that when we're not just working with adults and we're working with young people who may not be responsible legally for themselves. And so having somebody that has the background and even the background checks maybe to be responsible for permission waivers, transportation, and those types of things. The program is more attractive to school districts if they are eligible to apply for grants that are awarded by the youth committee. So if that young person's committee is able to create requests for proposals that apply to school districts, and school districts can bring some of that funding in, it sounds like that, they're going to be more supportive of that. The other advice is to put young people in charge of creating a needs assessment survey and then give them opportunities to actually communicate with nonprofits about priority areas for grant making. So those young people, this is a way actually to get them thinking about how decisions are made in the community, not just about how do we give out money, but who is making decisions about how we serve needs in the community. And so by connecting them to local nonprofits to identify those areas and to get them thinking about needs assessments, they're learning a skill set beyond, grant making really, but it's also going to empower them to serve on a board and be responsive to community.
Yes.
And so that brings us to empowering youth. And the advice again that came in that previous webinar is to give people the decision-making power, the young people, the decision-making power and funds to make grants, and then coach them to develop their own requests for proposals. We did some of this work actually with the folks who participated with us in the Place Matters work that Brushy Fork is doing in the Promise Zone. And we released those funds back in December and collaboratively worked to develop a request for proposals, and even went through a process to train board members how to use the online application scoring system that the foundation now has through their Foundant system. And so I could see taking that even to young people in the region and saying, not only are we giving you some decision-making power, we're going to teach you how to use these tools and how to do this grant-making process from the start to the award, and maybe even the reporting. Don't just put an emphasis on fundraising. And I think from my understanding, the point they were trying to make is that young people are often asked to fundraise for extracurriculars already, things like, of course, band. My kids were on academic team. We were always trying to do fundraisers for that and looking for ways to keep our kids from selling things, having to sell candles or cookie dough or all those things that we had to sell. But young people, of course, can fundraise, but just don't make that the only thing that they're doing. And by not focusing on it, they're able to spend more time learning about the whole structure and system of how local philanthropy works, because that's an important thing for them to understand as well. The other thing that they've talked about here under empowering youth is including those young people in recruiting and interviewing new philanthropy members themselves. And so they're going to have networks of friends that if they're enjoying what they're doing, they're going to be able to reach out to those friends and will be a better spokesperson to get those people involved than any of us grown-ups would be probably. So including them in recruiting and interviewing new members for a philanthropy group, youth philanthropy group, and creating that kind of leadership pipeline for participating students to recruit and orient new members. And so those are the first 2 points. Does anybody have questions or thoughts about those before I move on? There's a couple more on this next slide, or there's only one more actually, but let's consider these for a minute first and just see if anybody has questions or thoughts about them.
As we talk about introducing youth to philanthropy, you're also growing their knowledge and building a culture of giving to. And so if they start out in high school understanding this, as they get older, then they're probably more apt to leave a bequest, of their own. Of course, we will all be gone then, but when as they get older, then they'll understand kind of how the process works. And so I think it's really great, if we could figure out a way to implement this into our region. I think it'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I was really moved by the fact that both of the foundations have the youth doing needs assessment surveys in order to prevent it from being a non-data driven philanthropy, where it's your favorite charity.
Yeah.
They are actually trying to link community data with needs. And I thought, boy, that's really wise and eliminates so much of political problems that you might run into as well. So that was brilliant.
And, we're always talking about how our youth leave the area. If, it gives them, just part, if they fund the homeless shelter for even $2,000, then they're going to look at that as they have part of that, to have that success at the homeless shelter. I think it encourages them to remain in the area. So
it's roots and ownership.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the idea of partnering with the school districts, because there's so many good programs in the school that are already struggling to get funding, and so and already have such good leadership within the student body. And so by joining in with that school district, not only are you empowering the students and empowering the programs, but you're making sure you're not duplicating services and stretching things really thin. Mm-hmm. Instead, you're assisting those leaders who have already taken a position of leadership and helping them to grow, which I think is really incredible.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that Kathy brought up a minute ago about developing that culture of philanthropy with young people by involving them in this work, Berea College has actually done that with students on campus. And of course, most of Berea's students are students in need who are coming here, so they have financial need. But the college has created a program where students themselves can, because Berea doesn't charge tuition. And so we're constantly in fundraising mode to keep the cost of education covered for students. And so it's an opportunity. There is an opportunity for students while they are students at Berea to give back. And I wish I knew the numbers, I can't remember them, but there was a huge percentage of Berea students who gave just a little bit of their student labor paychecks back to Berea.
Wow.
And raised some substantial money by doing that. But more importantly, those students are leaving Berea with the habit of saying, this educational institution has given me something and I want to give back, and I'm in the habit of doing that now, even if it's just a small donation every year. And so, that is a true success story that I'm sure we could get somebody at Berea to talk to you folks about if there's, any interest in hearing more about that. But anything else on this one? Okay.
Well, if we're talking about how they develop their RFP, just that understanding of how that process works is going to carry forward, as they graduate from high school and college, and whether they're in the nonprofit world or in a for-profit business that might actually give funding. So I think just them understanding that entire process would be beneficial for the youth that's in the future.
Well, the next kinds of advice that were more general kinds of things is to start small and build up. That your nonprofit or your affiliate board doesn't have to start with the whole shebang all at once in a huge program, but just to start small. And then to think intentionally from the very beginning about creating that alumni network for youth that graduate from the program, and how to engage other young people, and then also how to engage the young people's family members. As a parent, when I had kids, I ended up getting very much engaged with their activities. And so that's a huge opportunity for you to expand your reach into the community. This seemed like a really important thing, that it is important to have a dedicated staff member coordinating the program, not to just have it kind of as an add-on, but say, there is somebody who owns this, holds this, is passionate about this, and is actually doing this coordination. And then the last thing that they have on here is that giveaways and swag with the foundation logo, gift cards to local restaurants, and other types of things like that are a good way to publicize and spread the word to young people about the program. So, maybe it's t-shirts or can coolers, or I don't know, whatever, that is something that young people can get at school to say, oh yeah, this looks cool. Maybe I want to learn more about that in some way. So that's the last of the highlights from the December training. And we could chat about these and then move on to our other discussion questions.
Well, I think the other thing the two foundations brought to this discussion was that they're both sitting on a pot of money, be it a little endowment fund or something like that. And so they're able to validate their work because they've got a source of income that they're able to use for the grants. And I think that was very valuable. I think it linked back to that discussion about don't make the kids just about fundraising, because they were already sitting there saying that, well, we've got these thousands of dollars that we can grant back to you. Again, a very valuable asset to the foundation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That, Sandy, makes me think about whether there's an opportunity, because I know that not all the affiliate funds have that little seed money that you could give to the students to give out. So is there an opportunity here, either as a collaborative among many of the affiliates, or as individual affiliates, to try to go somewhere to seek grant funding for a program like this, to say, we want to engage youth in philanthropy. Could we find a program that would, or a grant that would support not just that we are trying to get money to give out by the young people, but to actually develop them as local philanthropists, to develop them in their understanding of the community, and maybe something about using that data that you were talking about, Sandy, to say, what are the outcomes for the young people that we want from a program like this? And how can we fund it? And the money is a practice thing. The money that the pool of funds they have to give out is a way for them to practice.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was important too. We realized early on that they had the funding, and the students weren't out there, selling their cookie dough or trying to raise money to make the grants. So that let them focus on the educational part of it and the understanding of and growing the culture. So yeah, that's an important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, since we do have this Place Matters connection with Blue Meridian Partnership, if it would not be appropriate, since it is a youth thing that we're talking about, if we could propose to them, and honestly, I bet there's already talk of that happening at Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky, but where we would propose and say, give us a 5-year challenge, give us this lump sum, and we're going to challenge our affiliates to double that, to create an endowment that would allow us then in all of our affiliates to develop youth philanthropy, and to kind of like be the, and if we do double it, then we get to keep it. And if you don't double it, then we give you yours back and we work from what we've raised, but but something, a seed program for that, because again, that Place Matters work is about that whole youth development, youth leadership, youth everything. And it seems like it would make a really compelling argument, or application rather. So
yeah, and I've made a note about that in my notes so that I can, because I'm in conversation with folks about the Place Matters funding as well, and so we'll definitely bring up that as a potential idea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because there's no denying that this is powerful and that this is wonderful and it all needs to be involved. But I try to think about like the Upper Cumberland affiliate, and I'm like, how in the world could we implement something like this so systematically, and to do it well, and it again, it involves really having at least a confirmed volunteer that wanted to do nothing but run this, and then how do we, to me, the easiest part of doing something like this is to start raising money to set aside to make it happen later. But it just, to me, it's a whole unique entity.
Yep. So this is kind of getting at, we're getting into these we have two discussion questions here. And one is, what activities does your community foundation currently do that support and engage young people in your community? And we're talking about a potential thing that we're doing, that we could do through Place Matters. Then the second question is, consider your formal or informal plans to engage youth. What planned activity or strategy or activity do you feel will be most impactful and why? And I think what you're describing, Sandy, kind of get the Place Matters work could be an impactful way to start doing some youth development work. And what makes that work, if I'm understanding what you're saying, is that it's a process to create opportunities for youth to get engaged in philanthropy. But it's not just about them giving out money. It's about them learning about how to use data, how the decisions are made, how to do an RFP, and really gets them deeply embedded in some of that work.
Yeah.
The same stuff that the grown-ups have been learning. Through the work that we've been doing with the foundation.
Yeah. It's almost a mini affiliate in the high school, just practically. So yeah.
So
Claudia, are you still on Leadership TriCounty's board?
Yes, I am. But the whole time y'all have been talking, I've been sitting here thinking, all those are wonderful ideas. But I don't know about you all, but we just have a hard time recruiting people to help with these things. I know people that are on these boards, where it seems like we're on every board because we can't get anybody else to serve. And I was even thinking about the schools. I'm also with Knox County Unite, and they have Unite clubs. They have Unite Club possibilities if they can get a sponsor at their school. And they get free t-shirts, they get $750, other things. But it's so hard just to find an adult sponsor at the school.
Does it have to? It has to be a teacher, right, Claudia, or someone that's approved volunteer? They have to go through a process or something.
Yes.
No. Yeah. So
I know when I was, I did assistant coach for the academic teams over in Estill County, and I had to go through the fingerprinting and background check and all that in order to engage with the students at that level. And I was on the school bus with them sometimes to go on tournaments and things like that. And I couldn't ride that bus with them without having been fingerprinted and having had a background check. So
but going back to your question about Leadership TriCounty, yes, we do have a youth program. I'm not sure what it's called, that we normally do in the spring of each year. But for the past 2 years, that's not been a go because of COVID. So
right. Well, I was just thinking that, what if we approached, and I was thinking it was called junior leadership. But if we approach Leadership Tri-County and just said, because that's 3 of our 5 counties, and we approached them and said, we're wanting to join and partner with you guys and see if we can't do some fundraising to help. If you guys wanted to take on where junior leadership was about philanthropy, and we match that, maybe we could do some fundraising to help do that. But I don't know, that might go against their entire philosophy, because I was thinking that they liked each class to be able to figure out exactly what they were excited about when it came to working with students.
Could see how a needs assessment survey would fit into that
I know.
perfectly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That seems like a possibility though to me. I don't think they would have to be limited to one particular activity. They could do more than one. Again, it's just that the people who are involved are usually the ones who probably even with youth are involved in everything.
Mhm.
Well, that's true. That's true. Of course, the advantage you get with Leadership Tri-County is you do have 25 individuals that are, have just been identified as leaders and are as motivated as you're going to get in terms of fresh blood in the group, and perhaps they would be excited, to do that. But yeah. But again, we have to have that point of contact that has the ownership in the process, be it at the whole service area level, at the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky level, or even at the affiliate level, to be able to allow that group to do it and not, and to do it safely. So.
As I'm hearing you all talk about this idea of somebody to lead from the school who may not, or lead the students who may not necessarily be from the school, even the point that was made back here about somewhere about having, important to have a dedicated staff member coordinating the program. The affiliates don't necessarily have in the county staff members, but still, even if you're asking somebody to volunteer to do this or to do it and receive a stipend for working on it, having a kind of a position description, like if the affiliates put together what is the role and what are the responsibilities of this role, so that anybody that's taking it on has a clear understanding of that. Maybe a step that is not really clearly articulated in here. In these recommendations, but
the Community Giving Foundation, I believe that's the one. I can't remember her name, but anyway, she sent out some materials for us after that outlined their program. And I'm pretty sure she was the one that was responsible for it. And I think they had 12 school districts, maybe.
they said 12 up here.
And I think I did ask her if they just had one high school in each district, and it seems like she did. Now I know that's going to be different for our region because a couple of our counties have multiple high schools. So that, that's a little bit of a different dynamic, but it's not surmountable. I mean, we could still, figure that out. But she was the dedicated person in that foundation that took care of their youth philanthropy. Now, whether or not she had other responsibilities, I don't know, but she was very willing. I think we could, just find out a few more details from her and she said they started out small. They just started out with 1 or 2 districts, and then it grew from that. So
I just had a thought. What if we approached, and I'm thinking of this not as an Upper Cumberland's person, but as a Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky perspective. But what if we approach KVEC as the cooperative? It touches a big hunk of the schools of all of Eastern Kentucky, not all of them, but more so than any of the other cooperatives, and gauge their interest in pursuing doing something like this, and because they would know how to get into the schools, they would know that they would already be authorized, those types of things, and to see whether or not they would want to sign on and to be a part, especially if we could find funding that would support that effort. And then KVEC could then reach out to every affiliate and say, guess what? Knox Central has said they're interested in doing this. Upper Cumberland's, that's your area. Do you want to partner with them? I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think of how to make this happen. Because I think we can all agree that, boy, it is powerful and valuable. We just don't know how to crack it,
The other potential connection that you all could consider is to talk to Dale Stevens at Prosper Appalachia and see if you want to do youth stipends for young people who become active in this. Prosper Appalachia may, and I can't guarantee that, because what they really are funding are work internship kinds of things, but still there may be some opportunity to engage Prosper Appalachia in this in a way that allows for them to support and to even recommend youth for it in some fashion.
Oh yeah, definitely be a feeder to it. That makes sense.
But there may be a way, to just talk about what if we have youth, create youth stipends, or we find a young person who's recently graduated college and becomes a Prosper Appalachia intern to run this program in some way with the young people,
Okay.
But that's just throwing out a big sky blue. I don't know if that would even, carry water. Just not sure, but.
Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah. This
just
is
trying
our
to find,
conversation.
yeah, all the different, and
Cindy, you mentioned KVEC. What is that?
Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative. It's like South Central Southeast Cooperative. It is, and there's another one, Kentucky Educational something out of Lexington. I forget what it is, but essentially all the superintendents will join, and it's you get access to savings by purchasing collectively, and most of them are focused on teacher development, I think, but KVEC is just, I think, more innovative and does just some they take the cooperative idea and really run with it. They've had a number of years, they've had these big summits in which they have highlighted technology and innovation in the school districts, trying to get and they've also been, I think, the point people for getting visits by Silicon Valley superstars to come in and meet with students and so forth. But anyhow, that's just a thought as to, that this might be the type of thing that would excite them. So
how do they get funding, Sandy? I mean, it's just a.
Well, I mean, I think it's like everything. I think it's, I think it's, stacked. But, so there's, the school districts will buy in memberships, and then they got a Race to the Top grant that fueled them for many years, and I know that Jeff Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins, has recently retired from them, and I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Green, is now the president, executive director. So, I don't know whether or not that person, I don't know whether or not they've had the opportunity to, make their, get ingrained enough to know where they want to go with that. But I mean, trying to find organizations that are not specifically the Foundation for Appalachia, Kentucky headquarters in Hazard, trying to figure out how to do this, just trying to figure out other organizations that would be motivated and inspired to do this.
And they already have their foot in the door with the educational system.
See, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I find that there are some of the the tallest and biggest barriers for connecting with education. I mean, it's just very, very hard. If you are not in the education pipeline, you are the very last phone call they return, if they return it ever.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, because
and
they have to
yeah.
understand how everything fits within the comprehensive plans that they
Yeah.
are accountable to for their school systems and things. And so
Absolutely.
it's one of the things that I think having somebody within the school system could help the foundation and any other partners understand how do we word things or position things so that they align with a comprehensive, that I think they still call them comprehensive plans that the schools have to do to, for
You
their
bet.
curriculum over to show that they're meeting state mandates and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. They have a lot to account for. So
Oh, they do.
yeah,
I mean,
aligning
and
it that way will just make it easier for them to say, oh, that shoe fits. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
put it on the foot and go.
yeah. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
just a thought.
sure. Well, this is exciting conversation. I really had no idea where this conversation would go, but I think, yeah, it's interesting so far. What other thoughts do people have about either current activities that you're doing, or we've got this second question about, things that you feel like will have the most impact.
Now, one thing you could do that kind of, Upper Cumberland's has their annual grant RFP for nonprofits. You could stick your toe in the water and say, we're going to ask students to, share with us who they think should get those. We could add them to the grant making committee in some way. Or perhaps they are able to identify, maybe they could do a needs assessment so that we make sure that we've asked those agencies that they find need them to submit applications. So just trying to think.
Mhm.
And I know, and this isn't really, but on a couple of the strategic plans, I know a couple of the affiliates mentioned having a youth person somehow involved more with their board
Mhm.
to kind of get their perspective.
Yeah.
A little bit off topic, but it is involving the
Yeah, I
youth.
think maybe it was Floyd County. All these plans are starting to run together for me now.
Sure.
In Floyd County, I think they were talking about adding.
That's what they're talking about. Now they're going to go
facility.
to the district office and speak to the districts. The superintendent spoke at a recent chamber event, and so it started conversation from that. So they're going to meet with a couple of the schools, see how. Oh my dog! Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Sorry.
How that they can get more involved, with the schools in the district.
I actually thought it was Donna's dogs. I mean,
Mine are actually doing good right now.
oh, right.
Yeah,
Well,
we ended up with a pup right before Christmas. So
okay. Yeah.
it's
Well,
a new
I would be very interested in hearing about how Floyd County does that, because what I've noticed that when you try to involve youth in an adult activity like your advisory board, all of a sudden now you're looking at after school meeting times and, and challenges that logistically throw the adults out of kink. And so I would be very interested in hearing how they do it, how they add them.
Yeah, well, we have it's only in the beginning stages.
Sure.
After that chamber meeting, they were thinking that maybe they would visit each school and see kind of what their thoughts were, maybe how they could partner with them. So I'm
Okay.
not sure if it's going to go the direction of adding a youth, because they do have 3 high schools in the district. So that makes it a little bit complexing as well. So they're just going to have a conversation at the district office and at the schools first, and then they're going to work from that.
Yeah.
What are those 3 districts in Floyd County, Kathy?
The schools are Floyd Central,
Yeah.
Betsy Lane, and Prestonsburg.
Okay. And Betsy Lane is like its own, is that a independent school district, or is that like Floyd County
just-
North and Floyd County South?
It's just one district, technically the county district, but then it has the 3 high schools. And
So
then
the
they have-
Prestonsburg is not an independent school district?
it's not.
Nope.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's
Cool,
not a
cool,
city
cool.
school.
That's an advantage.
Yeah.
I at least I think it is. I mean,
Yeah.
everything that I've heard has said that the independent school districts, it's a little bit harder for them. So,
Mhm.
Now in Pikeville, it's different. Their
Right.
city school is an independent district, and then also in Johnson County, their city school is an independent.
gotcha.
All right. So, well, I know that I think Jackson County was also talking about doing some work around creating a club in the local high school. I don't know yet, though, how they fared on that. And Leslie County, I think, has done some work around. They have a youth philanthropy program that they have already been working with. To some
And
degree.
they do have a youth on their board.
Mhm.
And she's, I think she's been on there maybe 2 years. So that, it does come that do you look to a youth if you're going to add someone on your board that's a junior or a senior? That it's a senior, they're just 1 year, and then they've moved
Yeah.
on. So that's a few questions that you have to consider as well.
Mhm.
Well, Kathy, do you by chance know how Leslie County meets? I mean, how and is able to involve the youth? Are they all evening meetings, or how do you have any idea?
Before the pandemic, they were all meeting in the
Yeah.
evenings.
Okay.
Since then, it's like by Zoom, so she can join it if they're doing like NTI days, or so she's been able to join by Zoom.
Okay.
But they do just have the one high school in their
Okay,
district.
true.
College students would be good to involve if you're talking about youth, because they are more flexible and do have driving abilities, most of them.
Mhm.
So that's a possibility as well. It's just not starting as early for their.
True. True.
And we actually, through this Place Matters work, I've learned about what some of the Place Matters partners refer to as opportunity youth, which are those young people who are ages like 16 to 24, and they are disengaged from education and the workforce. And that's probably not who comes to mind immediately when you think, what if we bring somebody onto our board? It wouldn't be necessarily a young person that would be disengaged, but there could be an opportunity there, which is why they call them, they call them opportunity youth, because sometimes in our communities, we may be missing opportunities to engage with these young people. And there's an opportunity to pull them back into community. And I don't know if those individuals, people who are in that, place in their lives right now, could be somebody that you could reach out to and say, hey, would you like to join us and think about making some decisions about things like this? And not only could you be bringing youth into your board, but really impacting the life of a young person who, gets them engaged in the community in a different way, possibly. And I don't know if places like the community action agencies or nonprofits might be aware of young people who are in that place.
Well, yeah, therein lies the problem. I mean, our best connection is Prosper Appalachia, but these folks, once they're out of the school district, I mean, they're lost. They're like undocumented citizens or something. I mean, we have no way of finding a central location and identifying where they are, except for word of mouth, which is, real challenge. But hopefully as Prosper Appalachia gets going along better, a few years and so forth, that connection between school and workforce development will be stronger, so that we won't be losing people along the way.
Exactly.
But yeah.
We have a home for them here. There is a place it's called Ryan's Place that they can go to,
Mhm.
looking for a job, working on skills, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it is by the KCEOC.
Right. Right. And by the way, KCEOC is a part of the whole Prosper Appalachia thing too.
Yeah.
So the WIOLA funding for workforce development that goes through our community action agencies is a part of the weaving for Prosper Appalachia, trying to weave with education and them.
Yeah.
So
And so these partnerships, I think that's one of the things to really keep in mind as you try to engage young people in your work, is that these partnerships, and we've talked about partnerships with the school system, with KVEC, with maybe with Prosper Appalachia, but to me, it feels like a critical aspect of engaging young people, because there have to be so many supports, because there are demands on these youth for school already, or other demands that we may not even be aware of, especially with opportunity youth. What are they facing personally that are demands? And so how can we support their engagement that then builds them into becoming leaders in their communities, and local philanthropic leaders in their communities, which I think would be the ultimate outcome you would want from engaging youth in this work. But
yeah. Claudia, do you think that, do you think we need to just put this as an agenda item for the Upper Cumberland board to discuss the interest level of our board members in exploring youth philanthropy? I know. It's all about time. It's all about timing. And right now, we're so desperately trying to just get the logistics of the hang of it. I don't know if we throw in youth, if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That might be a good email to send out with what's
Yeah.
your suggestions.
Okay.
tell them to watch this recording.
Yes.
Because maybe
Okay.
seriously, I'm not just doing that to say watch this recording, but I think people will get a much deeper understanding of the depth of the conversation that we've had here, because this has felt like a pretty significant conversation about really putting to work what we learned in that December webinar, but making it fit what we are facing here in this Appalachian area.
Well, Claudia, we would definitely, if we sent view these 2 YouTubes and then respond, we would definitely find out whether or not we've got an appetite.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's the ultimate litmus test.
Yeah,
They're willing
exactly.
to sit through a recording of a training, then they're committed.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So. Well, I want to keep this conversation going as long as we have energy, but by no means do we have to keep talking until till 1 o'clock, just to let you all know. But are there other points and ideas that anybody wants to bring up?
I think it's been a good conversation, and I think it is an important conversation for our region, to develop as in a culture of philanthropy. So, I think we all just keep working and see if there's opportunities that come up that we could partner with others on this.
Yeah.
I think it's been good.
Sandy, with Whitley County's Rural Accelerator Initiative, are there any students on the leadership table for that? That could be
There's
potential.
not. That is, now that you mention it, that is so interesting. But you know what? There is not any students on that Rural Accelerator leadership table. Yeah.
That could, I don't know if that'd be a good spot to put them, just because I don't know how the schedules are working out for that, but it could be a
Right.
potential.
And that's a good point. I will say this though, the Rural Accelerator work does work with early childhood and 3rd grade reading and
Mhm.
so forth. And so it may be the reason there's no students is because they're too little.
Right.
But we could watch and as we are developing more with the whole pipeline and early childhood and the entire Place Matters works, we could watch carefully for that intersection to see if we can inject that in there. but that's a good thought.
Mhm. Okay, is the Community Foundation involved in that leadership table as well? Is that
With the
Or-
Rural Accelerator,
with the Rural Accelerator Leadership?
we're their fiscal sponsor.
Oh,
And
okay.
so,
Okay.
yeah, so the Whitley
Yeah.
County board members are the ones who
Mhm.
who actually, we serve on the table, and we write or sign off on their reimbursements
Okay.
and access to the funds. So, the foundation does the bookkeeping, and then the Upper Cumberlands does the legwork.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yep. All righty then. Well, let me give you all just an update about our next webinar, which
Okay.
is actually the date change.
Okay.
We are moving it to February the 16th at noon because we wanted to bring in guest speakers from the Greater Clark Foundation. The Greater Clark Foundation has done a significant amount of work around taking action on equity in the communities, and they're around Winchester. And it's been both inward facing work and outward facing work for them as an organization. And so they're going to share about that and consider, what we'll do at this webinar is consider how we can learn about historic and current ways that inequities are showing up in our communities. We might be able to recognize and unlearn some of the biases that we have that we don't even realize we have, explore belief systems, and move outside our normal circles of influence, which I think means really, we often interact within a certain circle of people. And how do we find ways to say, oh, I want to meet people who are different than the normal circles that I interact in, and then have some discussion around questions or challenges that board members feel like they're facing with thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can this work help board members build trust in the community? And then what are steps that you and your fellow board members can take to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts? When we were doing the reading the grants for the RFP for the Place Matters work, again, we keep coming back around to that, but that's been our real learning tool. People brought up diversity, equity, and inclusion. Are we thinking about that in awarding these grants? And so here's an opportunity for us to visit with people who have really done a good job. And I'm sorry, I don't have the names in front of me. Jen Aguirre maybe, or something like that. Anyway, so sorry. I shouldn't even try the name when I can't say it, but so I think she will be one of our speakers at least, and maybe somebody else from the foundation. And Jacqueline has been working on setting this one up and really doing the legwork on it, which is why I'm kind of fuzzy on the names. But I do think this will be a very interesting webinar and would really encourage you all to attend. And so we can get into these kinds of conversations, including in taking action on equity for youth. If we think about young people as an under-involved group, we might be able to bring aspects of the conversation we've had today into this one. So that is our, let me stop sharing my screen. That's our webinar for today, which was really just this conversation. And I really appreciate you all hanging in there. We had a small group, but small but powerful, small but mighty, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we will get this recording up. If you have further questions or want to talk about this with Brushy Fork, we're perfectly happy to continue the conversation as well. So
Super duper. Thank you, Donna.
thank you, everybody.
See y'all.
Have a great day.
Oh,
baby.
Oh, how old is this baby?
He is almost a year old.
Oh.